Hey guys, just wanted to just have a quick message here today. And I know that over the last number of times I've had a chance to speak with you. We talked about resilience, we've talked about persistence, we talked about having resourcefulness. And I know when I was wrapping up the last talk on resourcefulness, we were talking about how that leads into problem solving and how you get paid in life in direct proportion to the problems that you can solve. And the more severe the problems you can solve, the greater the income you can. So in my journey, I learned a 4-step process on learning to solve problems. And it's been monumental, not only for me, but as I've mentored and coached other people to help them along their journey. And when they pay it forward and begin to mentor and coach their people, same thing. And so the 4-step process for me that I've learned is number one, you have to ask your mentor as you begin to mentor other people and get perspective. And so one of the things that we've often said, and I've used in conversations or talks that I've done before, is that the height of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And that is true. And so you can't really help other people until you've helped yourself. And then that leads me to, Albert Einstein's quote is, you cannot solve the significant problems in life that you face with the same level of thinking that you had when you created them. And so what I try to have people understand is that when you're learning to solve problems, you have to elevate your thinking. And you first ask, I got this situation. You ask your mentor, what would they do? And so that's step number one. Ask them what they think, because what you're trying to accomplish there is you're trying to learn their thought process. Like I said last week, Dexter's greatest teachings was you teach people how to think, and then you get people how to think right. And too many people don't think for themselves. And so that's step number one. Step number two is when you have a situation or a problem, and then you go to your mentor to ask, you've also then put some thought, some ideas and some concepts of what you think should be done. And so I remember hearing a talk by Joyce Myers, and Joyce said she was so frustrated with her staff because they would always bring problems, but they'd never come with any solutions. And so the first step in learning how to solve problems, obviously is asking. The second step is putting some thought into, okay, what do you think? How would you handle this situation? How would you? And then, you kind of weigh that with what your mentor says should be done. And that puts you in a place where, okay, I'm on the right train of thought. I'm thinking the right way. Maybe I should do this or do that. And I really never thought of it that way. And that's when you start learning that growth mindset, that thinking that'll elevate you to the next level. The third step is when you've decisively said, okay, I'm going to go to my mentor. This is what I think should be done. So you're way more decisive. You're still bouncing it off them to see if that's the right thing, but you've handled the situation in your mind yourself, and you're just coming for approval. So that allows your mentor then the reverse of role. He gets to see how you're thinking. And it's more heightened, it's more, understanding. And then that way, he says, great, you're on the right track, proud of you. Or, hey, maybe you need to have more grace, maybe this, maybe that. And they allow to steer you in certain directions. So, and then the fourth thing, and, that's probably where I am today, is, I still help people and solve situations and help solve problems. But every once in a while, I want to make sure I run it by Jeff and say, okay, I did this, and this was the situation, and I did it, and I'd like to know if you would have changed anything, or if you would have handled it the same way. And then I also want to be open to those comments. And so those are the 4 steps: asking, getting perspective, asking, but getting putting some thought into it, putting total thought into it, getting a solution, and asking, and then getting to a point where you're solving things, but you still ask because you want to make sure you're on the right track. And so, if we put that to, something that maybe you're getting into, let's say a budget session. So you're now having people coming to you and say, hey, I want to do a budget session. And so one of the things that become very apparent when you sit down with somebody and you do a budget session is you're going to become very aware if you've built trust. Because the number one thing you need to accomplish in a budget session is to find out totally where they're at. It's like, when you do a credit app, or somebody does a credit app on you, you don't get to pick and choose what they see. They see everything. total transparency, total open book on what you've done in your life as far as credit and credit rating. So the same thing with a budget session, you can't help people if they're hiding things back and they're holding here and there because you don't get a total picture. So the first thing you would do if you're asking, okay, how do I do a budget session, is just get some perspective. And that's my number one thing. I just tell them, okay, you're going to find out very quickly that whether or not you've built trust. And so if you haven't, then they're going to be very reluctant even to ask you to do a budget session. And more importantly, if they do one, they're going to hold back. And so that's the first thing. So then once you get them to be trained, the second aspect of helping people solving problems or helping them with their budget session is, okay, and one of the things I want to tell people is you don't have to use people's names when you bring problems or situations to your coach and mentor. It's sometimes not helpful, and it sometimes can paint a picture in your mentor's eye of somebody that's in your mentorship that they maybe think differently of them or whatever. So I've learned over the years not to use people's names, just a situation. And so second step in this budget session is, okay, I go to my mentor. This is a situation, this, and this with the people. They've been transparent with me. They're trusting, they're open. Obviously there's some things here that I think is it situations, but I'm not sure. What would you do? So that's second step. Third step is you're helping people in a budget session. You have questions to your mentor that you've seen that's pretty glaring in their budget, situations that could be handled. You've thought it through. You said, okay, if we do this, this, and this, we cancel that. We do this. We cancel that. We get this. Those things, then you're in the third phase. You're handling people's budgets, but you still come to your mentor and say, okay, these the right things to do? And the fourth thing, you're budgeting with people. You're doing it on a regular basis. You're handling it. But every once in a while, maybe there comes up a situation where you weren't quite sure. You did it, but you just run it by your mentor and say, hey, was this what you would have done? And so that's just an overview of problem solving and learning how to solve people's problems, learning how to solve your own problems. It's based on your thinking and your level of thinking and having an awareness. And then back to, the resourcefulness, the talk I did last week, where I said, you got to think outside the box. You got to be prepared, mentally prepared to understand, okay, and biggest thing I think is having an understanding that if it's a money problem, it's not a problem. Okay, we can solve that. We teach people how to build assets. That's what we do. We have a program where we teach people how to build multiple streams of income, to build cash flow, to be cash flow millionaires. And so, money problems is not an issue. If it's health or something else, those are more difficult to handle, at least from my perspective. I'm not a doctor, but if it's a money problem, it's not a problem. And that's an attitude that you need to start with. So hopefully this helps and finds you well, and look forward to seeing you at the next time we get to have a chat.